Hello, PAX Online, and welcome to Pat Baer's Anime Club, yelling about the shows we love. This is the second time we've done this, the first time that we're doing it only streaming, or actually the first time we're doing streaming at all, because the first time was at PAX East 2020, and it was not streamed then, which was a shame, because I know that you folks watching right now in Twitch love anime, and you love when things happen on Twitch that have nothing to do with video games. You love that. I know you do. You love the panel where we recommend, sometimes loudly, sometimes definitively, anime that we are tired of telling people to watch, and now we can just point at a video and say, here, this is why I think you should watch this. Here with wonderful guests. I'm with Corey and Beej. Hello, both of you. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello there.
You're both from LoadingReadyRun, as well as your own internet shenanigans. You wouldn't mind letting the audience know a little bit about your anime fandom, or I don't want to say qualifications because that doesn't make any sense. No one's gatekeeping here, but yeah, if you want to talk for briefly about like, hey, this is me and anime, feel free.
I'd actually like Beej to go first because he explains a lot of my stuff.
Oh, okay. Age for beauty, it seems. Obviously, I'm a lot older. So in university, I was vice president and president of our local university anime club, the Bonsai Anime Club of Alberta, which of course spells Baka when you put that out with a K for club.
Yeah.
And then I was also the director of public relations and vice chairman of Animathon from like Animathon 5 pretty much up to like Animathon 13, I think it was. And then I've also been, I lived in Grand Prairie, Alberta for a while, and I started a club there because there was no anime club. So I was like, well, I want to start an anime club at the college. So GPAC, the Grand Prairie Anime Club, was something that I ran for a few years until I eventually moved back to Edmonton, which is where I used to live. And then through all of this, I did a lot of work at anime conventions as a guest, as a member of Snap to Chaos Theater, the now defunct Snap to Chaos Theater, which is an improv group that we focused a lot about geeky stuff. And I guess outside of that, my friend Ian Horner and I were running a podcast called Diecast for many years, which was a focus on Japanese culture and pop culture, but from a Western perspective, and it was a lot of fun to do. And then myself and Ian and Heather, Dery, and Corey, in fact, were all on a podcast hosted through LoadingReadyRun called Ano Ani, which takes its name from Anohana. So it's basically, we still remember the name of that anime we saw on that day. And we did that for about a year and a half or so. And,
Yeah, something.
And now it's just kind of like hiding in the bushes. I don't know.
Now you do a stream where you rant about anime nonstop for 3 hours.
Yeah, that's me now. Every 3 months I do a breakdown of what I want to talk about in the upcoming season, or what just finished in the last season, because it's mostly just, that's kind of, I guess I need to get some shit off my chest.
It is a thing where when I know that's coming up, I pay attention because you don't advertise you're going to do it. It's just suddenly there's a Sunday night, and I know it's like, well, we're towards the end of the season. Beej is going to pull this on a Sunday. I should like keep my eyes peeled because I enjoy it. Because also sometimes we watch different things. So you can be like, I didn't watch this, and I'll be like, good, or it's actually great. You should check it out, you know?
Yeah, which helps actually too. That helps getting new recommendations, because sometimes, like this current season, there's nothing on that I want to watch.
This current season, folks, if you're like, I want to get into it, one of the best shows is a holdover from last season that went on hiatus due to the coronavirus hitting Japan harder after they were doing okay and then weren't. Diary of Our Days at the Breakwater, which is, it's not a chill slice of life, but it's still a good slice of life.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good slice of life if the first episode was a sports anime, because the main character does not want to be doing what she's doing, which is very sports anime in my opinion. You know, like, oh, I don't want to join this, and now you're there. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that show in this thing. Corey, I know some of that is similar, especially the LoadingReadyRun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm Coriander Dickinson. I attended Beej's Anime Club up in Grand Prairie, GPAC. Took over the club after his wife. Ran that for like a couple years. Did a lot of the Animathon stuff. Did a lot of stuff with improv troupe called the 404s, and then Synaptic Chaos Theater, and now Loading Ready Run. And I guess I met my partner Ian Horner through Beej, so that's kind of nice. But
Hell yeah.
up to like or from like 2003, you can just be like Beej and Corey's name.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. So refer back to what Beej was saying for that part for modern Korean anime. So for me, my earliest anime stuff is, like fan subbing and all that and going and buying that stuff. I worked at an import store that sold VHS tapes that were made in New York and then traveled to Connecticut. So people just bought fan subs from us, and then legit wall scrolls, legit Hello Kitty merchandise, and then definitely CDs that were not made in China and not Japan, that were shrink wrapped, and legit model kits, which is where I fell in love with model kit building, was working in that store, because I bought a couple and nobody else in the store knew anything about model kits. So the owner was like, "Hey, would you build a couple that we can put out, because nobody wants to do this?" And so that's when I started building model kits, was this lovely store in a mall. And then eventually some of the fan subs we were selling were definitely not fan subs. They were VHS copies of shows that had come out on DVD. We had VHS tapes of Silent Mobius, which was definitely the legit DVD, just on a VHS tape. And then by the towards the end of my time working there, that's when you got those using Babelfish direct translate to DVD, get a DVD in 10 episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where they call him like Game and Dark, because they don't know, they're translating names into words. But yeah.
I mean, the history of anime in North America, in like essentially in the 90s and especially into the 2000s, is the story of how much bootleg shit did you end up buying, right?
Yeah. I had a lot of it. Still have a few. And then, went a period where I wasn't watching anime. And then when I started doing my model kit building stream, which I'll plug at the end of this, somebody was asking about anime stuff, and I kind of started watching it a little again. And I realized, I can talk about anime here while I'm building. And there is a portion of my audience that is very happy with that, and a portion that is fine with me talking about it, because they enjoy me talking about things, even if they're not going to go out and watch an anime that I'm recommending to them. They're never going to watch Black Clover, and I get that, and it's okay. You don't have to watch Black Clover.
But it's great.
Yeah, it's great. It's great, but there's a lot of episodes of it, and Asta yells all the time, and there's also a creep. There's the thing, which brings us into this. So we're going to talk about some shows that we really want you to watch. That's the whole point of this. Let's go over to that view. And we're going to answer the question, because it's important when discussing shows. We're not just going to talk about all the good parts. We will talk about the bad parts with it, or even if it's not bad, stuff you should be aware of. So we'll answer the question, is there a Minetta? Now, it doesn't have to be a physical character that you hate. Like in the case of Black Clover, there's a character, Gotch, who is a syscon, and he sucks, and I hate him, and I hate him, and I hate when he's on screen. So if I'm going to recommend that show, I need to tell you about the shitty character that I think sucks. And you need to know about that. So sometimes it is a character like Minetta. But sometimes it's like... there's a situation, there are themes, tragic backstory pasts that are just, like, this show is really light until this one episode when it's not light anymore. And we won't go into too much detail about it, but like, hey, just, it's content warnings sometimes. Because we know that. Sometimes you're like, you forget, you're like, I recommended Dragon Maid to you and forgot to tell you about a couple scenes that are very not cool. Shit. So sorry about that. I wish I had said, "Hey, you should watch Dragon Maid." When they go to play, when two of the young characters go to have a hangout, it gets weird, and that's not fun. And then sorry, you got to say that, because like, no one in the world plays Twister anymore, but it's in that anime, and it's not great. So you have to, you want to tell people that.
My memory is poor also,
Yeah.
as I've learned. So if I apologize in advance if I forget to bring something like that up, but I've been racking my brain to make sure that if there is a Minetta in the things I'm going to recommend, I'm going to try to get it out there. And if I forget something, I apologize for that.
I think we'll be fine. And like I said, and also some people are like, they recommend a show and they don't bat an eye. And you're like, hey, this happened. And they're like, yeah. And you're like, okay. So everybody's different. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's those caveats. Like Fire Force is great, except it sure hates women. It sure hates women in that show. So if that's a fucking deal breaker for you, then it is, and you should know that going into it. Because it just hates women. Really does. Anyway, let's get into our first series. I'm gonna start things off, and I'm gonna tell you why you should watch Senryu Girl.
All right.
So Senryu Girl is lovely. It is half-length episodes. There are 12-minute episodes, so you can get through it pretty quick, but savor it. It is the story about a girl that would prefer to communicate via the written word in forms of poems, as you can see there. And basically, her being a high school student and, pretty much falling in love, but also making cool friends and having great times. And it is also the story of, the only thing I can describe it, because it's an anime cliche, is a guy with resting bastard face, or mean mug. Just a person that looks mean but isn't mean, and people are scared of them. Often they do have, as you can see there, like blonde hair, and they look maybe Western, is a trope. But sometimes it's just people that have like that death stare they don't realize, or they don't have any control over it. So like, that's the only thing. He's just a big dumb idiot who's a lovable idiot. But that's the only thing, is people are scared of him. And various other characters, and another witch you can see in there that communicates non-verbally, that communicates via drawing. And then there's like the cliche, like fortune teller, and I don't know why that's there, but she's there, she's fun. But it's mostly about like two characters kind of like getting to know each other and seeing what's up. And you learn about poetry a bit, but you mostly just learn about them. There isn't a Minetta, but there is, I say, upon second viewing, I fast forward through any time that her dad talks, because it's very cliche. It's overprotective father, and he's not overprotective in the fact that she speaks non-verbally or communicates non-verbally. He's just like, he's just got a teen daughter, and he's just over dramatic about it. And
He's like, oh, she's growing away from me. Oh, I need to try to keep her from doing whatever. And oh, she has a new friend. That's great. It's a boy. Oh no, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of weird. And then like the pink-haired girl is like not overtly sexual, but she is more sexual than any other character in it. And it's not like over the top, but if that's a thing that you're like, no, then just be aware of that. Also, the girl you see there with the short hair is in charge of the club, and she is one of my favorite minor characters because she is invested in seeing how this relationship goes, and because she has no love life of her own, and the ways that it's just, there's a running gag of her being in disguises that it's very fun.
Yeah.
It's just light and silly and short, like I said, half-length episodes. But I feel like it was really overlooked when it came out. I think it came out in a good season, so it was just like not on a lot of people's radar, but I loved it.
It was a good season for me when this came out, because I was like, yes, I love this manga, and it's a yonkoma. But it's not meant to be a gag manga, but in some ways it is. It's meant to be really funny.
There are wonderful, great gags. There's also just like, this is not a spoiler. There's a cute little moment. Edgy's younger sister can't say Nanako, the main character's name, right. She says Nananko. And there's no way to translate that in the subtitle, but if you hear it, you're just like, that's adorable. She just does not say the name right, and it's great. But yeah, it's very cute and fun, and some of it's a little cliche, but I would say the cliches they aren't eye-rolling, and then I don't know. It's just it's a
You
fun
have to
little
be
thing.
you have to like be willing to with Senryu Girl to be able to buy into the fact that it's like everything she doesn't talk ever. She only ever communicates. It's due to her having a communication disorder of some point. She's very shy in some ways, but it kind of hard locked her into writing Senryu, which are essentially haiku, but can be Senryu are like a more like relaxed version of a haiku. They're 575, but they're not meant to like have like, oh, I must bring up the autumn or I must bring up cherry blossoms or something, right? And you have to be willing to buy the fact that she's able to get through all of high school and get through all these relationships with her friends and do all this stuff by just constantly writing these things and showing them off. And so how they do that in the show is that she never moves her mouth, but she will narrate them. So you get to hear a voice actress reading these things out to you the entire time.
Yeah, you hear her internal dialogue, and I also one of the things I love about this is there is only one scene, and it is very light and not super harsh, where anyone even pauses to go, "Wait, you don't talk." It almost the entire series, except for one scene, which is also like a backstory thing. The series is basically built on the premise that people are like, "Yeah, all right, let me read what you wrote,
Yeah.
or let me look at your drawings," and it is a lovely little thing where that like you could envision another series that being a constant issue, but it is not an issue in this show. But yeah, that's Senryu Girl. I recommend it. That's why it's included. So Corey, let's go to your first pick.
Yeah. So I've heard reviewers call this Noein, but I've always called it just Noein. So Noein mo Hitori no Kimi e, or to your other self. And I was on the tweeters and I saw people posting videos of these like gnarly porcelain looking battleships that have faces and arms and legs and stuff. And that's from this series, which is kind of a quantum physics fantasy show. So there's multiple timelines and multiple dimensions interacting with each other. There's an evil big bad group called Shangri-La that's trying to destroy space-time. And there's a country far in the future, 15 years in the future, called La Crema that sends part of its army back in time to stop Shangri-La from getting the thing that lets them destroy the world. But they have like physical tethers that connect them to their time, and they all have kind of like magical fighting abilities, which involves a little bit of body horror, just a little bit. Kind of like on the level of Parasite, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's got just like real interesting action, really interesting design. It's from 2005, and there's some like early CGI in it that's, kind of stands out, but fits because they're trying to do a lot of weird stuff. They also do a lot of the very loose sketchiness during action scenes where the shapes and forms get a lot looser, which a lot of people I've think it, or I've heard them say that it's lazy, and I disagree. It's violent. There's some gross eyeball stuff because the big robots get destroyed. I don't think there's a specific character that does anything gross, but it has been a long time since I've seen it. I'm pretty sure Beej showed this to me in his anime club.
I've never seen this.
Well,
yeah, maybe that was something when Heather was around.
So Beej, this is by the director of Escaflowne and creator of Heat Guy.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah,
And the character designer did like Madoka and Durarara, Haikyuu.
Huh.
So it's got some big staff people on it.
Yeah, the big monster designs, like the big rope, whatever. I remember being very being like, oh, this is awesome. Even like 2005, because the CGI is definitely there and noticeable, but it's not like It doesn't like take you out and go like, another studio did this. This is a bad part of this episode.
No.
It just is like they probably didn't think they could do this otherwise.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like it's Satellite produced it, but it's some kind of ex-Sunrise people as well. And I was looking through a lot of the staff links and stuff for my picks, and I don't know which one on my list had a crossover with Silent Mobius, but you brought it up, and I was like, that's a thing I'd never heard of before, but one of these people did that.
Yeah, Silent Mobius exists in my mind only as an anime that, from that instance, I don't know anything else about it except that it was very clear those VHS tapes were copied from a U.S. licensed subtitled DVD. Outside of that, Silent Mobius exists, but I don't know what. There's a lady, and that's all I know.
Yeah.
So is Noein like? Are they high school students, middle school students?
12.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
So there's some
Okay.
children in peril.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's that kind of Shadow Star, Narutaru.
Yeah, kind of,
yeah.
but it's a bit dark. It's more of a drama than anything else.
Okay. It's not going to kind of make you expect one thing and give you another. It's like, no, we're going to kind of have the same. What you see when you start the show is kind of what you'll see as the show continues on.
Yeah.
Neat. Okay. Yeah, I have heard of this. I just have never seen it. Huh.
Yeah, my recommendation for it is based on it being interesting, not necessarily good,
Like that 9 out of 10.
but very
but-
interesting. Yeah.
But mid 2000s, like mecha and piloting monster. Is this a mech or is this a humanoid? Like that's a pretty fun era of like people being like, man, Gundam's been on for a long time, and people seem to like some parts of Evangelion. I guess we'll do that.
Yeah, but it's not even like mech versus mech. You've got like little individual fighters that have superpowers that are like taking on these big monsters. And also they fight each other and they like run around Hokkaido with time frozen, like moving through buses and stuff. And
Okay.
it's very cool.
There's a lot going on. All right. Well, thank you, Corey, for that. Beej, we're going to talk about your first one.
Yes.
I looked at this. This is an anime that I think I know about. And then I was just like, is that Bell Dandy? It's not Bell Dandy.
No, it's not.
It's not Bell Dandy. Also, this is legitimately the best photo I could find. Google image search was just like, do you want 100 by 200 photos? I was like, no. And I found this. And I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is.
So it has nothing to do with flying motorcycles or giant ghostly people in the background or any of that kind of stuff. So Earth Maiden Arjuna, Chikyu Shoujo Arjuna, or that just gets called Arjuna, or at least has been kind of called that for a while. But now if you search it on the internet, you kind of have to look for Earth Maiden Arjuna because there's like Arjuna from like Fate, and there's Arjuna from like a whole bunch of, also the god. But anyway, so Juna, who is our, who's the high school student who is holding the that very fancy bow. She does that because she's in the school archery program. She's in the traditional Japanese longbow archery club, team, whatever you want to call it. That's why they gave her that weapon. It all works out. Anyway, she dies. First episode. I don't think we get halfway through the first episode and she dies. She gets like thrown off a motorcycle, dude's motorcycle. That's her boyfriend. And before she dies, when her soul is coming out of her body and it's ascending into the stars, the small blonde-headed boy that's sitting in the wheelchair, he basically appears to her and is like, hey, you have a job to do. I can save your life. And she's like, what? I guess, yes. Is that what's going on? And she gets sucked back to Earth. She wakes up in the hospital bed. Everyone's like, what the hell's going on? And then runs outside. And if I'm trying to remember the whole thing, a helicopter appears with this kid on it in the wheelchair. She gets on, and he takes her off to like another part of Japan, essentially. So that's the start. Now the whole story is how she's like the avatar of the Earth. She represents a very strong Gaia figure. at this point, and her job is to ensure that nothing bad happens. And the first episode is essentially we can see that there's going to be a problem at this nuclear power plant, and so we know that because there are giant CG worms that are in the area around the nuclear power plant that nobody else can see. Only you, because you have the power of this like Earth avatar, that you can actually see them. And now you have to show up, transform into this Earth avatar girl, pull out this magical bow, and you have to confront them. And so she tries shooting them and stuff, and it's she keeps shooting them, and it's just angering them, making things worse, and the power plant's blowing up and all this kind of stuff. And Chris, the kid in the wheelchair, is like, no, you're not doing it right. You should be doing it right. Why aren't you doing it right? And she's like, I don't know, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And it's like, they're not the worms are not the enemy. Like, they're not the ones who are doing things wrong. And she's like, oh, and she starts to have this sense of realizing what's actually going on. And so then she's like, oh, I know. And she starts shooting them with her bow again. But this time she's shooting arrows of love, I guess. And it calms the worms and it sends them back underground, and all the stuff that's happened to the nuclear power plant, the thing doesn't end up going like full meltdown and blowing up and like destroying like the part of Japan that it's in. So there's lots of like early 2000 CG in this. That's just the first episode. But the whole series is basically based on her trying to come to terms with why she is this person now. Like, who is this Earth Maiden? Why is she supposed to be this person? What is her job? What's this shadowy organization that came and found her and said, we need you to do this because you're important to the survival of the Earth? And thus begins a 13-episode crash course in awareness.
Okay.
And the biggest problem I have with this, we didn't think we were going to be talking about abortion on this episode, but here we are. There is an episode that focuses on abortion and takes a very pro-life stance with it, which I don't agree with. But it has this sense of, hey, if when you get pregnant, there's a baby inside you, and if you abort a baby, then that you can like listen to the screams and the cries of that baby that wants to stay alive. And I'm like, fuck off. Like, it's a lot. And this is definitely, the show is pushing a lot of different political issues. But one thing it does do is so we'll put that one aside for now. That's the thing that I think is probably the biggest triggering thing for a lot of people. But there's a lot of focus on, do you know where your food comes from? Do you know how your food is made? She bites into a hamburger and she gets sick because she realizes that all the, how the cows are treated and how they're pumped full of hormones and like all these kind of things. And she's like, she can taste all of the suffering that went into making this burger because she's now connected fully to like all aspects of the planet. And then she's trying to figure out, well, what am I supposed to do? How do I interact like with anything? How do I understand what's going on? There's an episode that focuses on math, just on the beauty of mathematics. Like, it has weirdly very specific political overtones, and a lot of the stuff it brings up can even be ideas where I'm like, that's an interesting idea, even if I don't agree with it. I think it's an interesting idea, and I think it's interesting you brought things up in that way. And it makes it a really challenging show to watch. And it doesn't stop being interesting or fun for me. And it is only 13 episodes. 13, I think, yeah. And I'm just like, this kind of feels like one of the better ways to be like, I have something I need to get off my chest. I want to share it with the world. Here's an anime in which I can share all these different things. Is it a little incoherent at times? Yeah, because there's always a story thread that's going through, but now we're focusing on math for an episode, or we're focusing on beef for an episode, like that kind of thing. And but ultimately, it's got a really good heart. It's and the music's by Yoko Kanno.
You could have said that a couple of minutes ago if you were really trying to sell this.
And it's directed by Shoji Kawamori, who also worked on Macross Plus and worked on Escaflowne as well. I mean, I believe this is a Sunrise show, so it was definitely, it's Bandai Entertainment, done by Satellite. So yeah, it has, again, a show with an excellent pedigree. And if you watch the behind the scenes in this, you get to hear what the directors and the writers thought about all the stuff that they put into the show. It's interesting to hear some of that stuff, but I like this, and it's hard to recommend to people because it's like, I'm giving you something that's going to kind of hit you politically when I mean, everything is politics. Let's just be fair. But it's going to do a thing that's like challenging, and it's probably going to upset you. Like, I didn't like the episode on abortion because I'm like, you're really taking a one-sided stance to how you think about this that I don't even think can be backed up in specific ways. But I'm willing to watch what you want to say about this because I think you also still have the very best of intentions.
When did they get to the tournament arc?
They never do because it's only 13 episodes. It's so great. It's over. It's over before any of this really crappy tropey shit like that happens.
There's another Earth goddess out there, and you need to fight her in a tournament with other candidates for Earth goddesses.
I thought for sure they were going to do that there's going to be ones in different parts of the world or something like that, and they all have to they all are angry at each other for some reason, and it never comes up.
Full G Gundam.
Yeah. Yeah, you just go full. You never want to go full G Gundam.
I recommend Earthmaiden Arjuna.
Thank you, Beej. Yeah. I mean, I also, if somebody wants to make an anime about motorcycles that fly, I'll also watch that. I'll watch what I thought this anime was based on this one image of this section here in the middle. I'll also watch that anime. Anyway, okay. Now let's get into my second pick for the show. My second main pick here. Yowamushi Pedal. If you are, like me, looking for long anime that you can marathon in, or a couple months ago you were just like, I don't know, here's a long anime for you, a really solid, great long anime. I say I'm not a sports anime guy, and then I watch some sports anime that I love very, very much. So at first I was like, a biking club, okay, whatever. There's a lot of episodes of it. There's a movie of it. I'd watched this like a couple years ago. I started watching the show. Okay, but I randomly just saw a clip on YouTube of a little guy on a bike pedaling really, really well and being great at it. And all of the people he like other people who were like big tough people like you see in this photo just freaking out about how good he is. And I was like, okay, I'll check this show out. Onoda, you see there, the little guy there, he didn't set out to be in a biking club. He set out to join an anime club when he got to high school because he loves anime and no one he knew watched anime. And he was like, when I get to high school, I'll make friends in the anime club and I'll have someone to talk to. So he's kind of a loner. He rides his bike. He's got a grandma bike, he rides it to go buy anime and to buy figures and stuff. And then he bikes to school. And the anime club is closed because it didn't have enough new members because the members graduated and then nobody new was taking it up. So he needs people to join the anime club to start it up again. And through happenstance, he ends up in a bike race with a guy who wants to join the bike club, the cycling club. And he does not win this race, but he ends up like trying out for the team. And he doesn't know jocks. He's not interested in doing this. He has this natural weird talent for cycling because he just has a lot of endurance in his frame. And this is not what he expected. And none of them watch anime or have any idea what he's talking about. A couple of them are like, I think my brother and sister like that show because they're children. It kind of takes that stance on it. But it's not just about this one little guy growing and getting confidence and changing who he is and finding a thing that he's passionate about. It's also about all the other people around him who have their own passions and their own desires, but also are just along the way changed by this really nice little guy that they've like never met anyone quite like it. Because like there's another guy that's small there, but he's like a different kind of small because he's still muscular and he's still like doing a different thing. And he's like now not the small guy, which I that's one of my favorite little things in anime is when there's like, because Haikyuu has that too, because it has the smallest guy in the team, but there's also a guy who's just a little taller than him, but he's now not the small guy. I don't know. That's just a little thing that I enjoy. But this is a show about heart, and there are a lot of other teams because they're competing in these big citywide tournaments or countrywide tournaments with the high schools, and there's rivalries, and you meet all these other characters, and you watch those characters grow because they with the one possible exception, even though he does have a bit of a redemption, they all just want to bike and get better and do better than the other teams and build up the next generation. There's a lot about like, well, what happens when we're done? Because we're seniors. So we need to build the club up because we don't want the club to go away. And you just like, also, they made up an anime theme song to like a pretty girl anime, like a magical girl, I should say, not pretty girl, magical girl anime, that he uses to increase his cadence because he can bike to the song. So there's this beautiful moment of the big dude in the bottom right corner here, this big guy just being like, we'll try that song thing, and he has to like sing this song to like distract himself and pick up the cadence, and then people are like, what's happening right now? And then there's this and another time they do it, there's a shot of a woman going like, I know what that's from, that seems like a nice team. And it's just like, oh, it like right now in this moment, it's just like there's so much feel good stuff, and there's highs and lows, and it's a beautiful story, and you just like are always rooting for this little guy. And there, as I said, there is kind of probably Minetta, which is this dude. His catchphrase is calling things gross that are not gross, and he is indeed the gross one. He's got a twisted set worldview and a twisted sense of self and a twisted look at everything. He pretty much sucks, but he's very good at cycling. Mitasuji. The only thing is he also watches anime, so Onoda thinks he can talk about anime, but he doesn't want to do that. And he definitely thinks that like camaraderie and like team stuff is gross. And you can see here, he just contorts his body. He does a lot of like leaning and do impossible leans and just like a lot of stuff that when animated is just, he's a lot. He's just a lot.
Like he puts his body full up over the handlebars and like licks the road.
Yeah,
it's not good.
His tongue comes out. It's not great. He's one of the bikers that does mind games with people on his own team, mind games with other people. It's definitely like a weird dude that found out he was good at biking. So where Onoda was like, I'm good at biking. I'm going to make friends and grow as a person. And he was like, I'm good at biking. I'm going to dominate everyone and be the best weird version of me I can be. So he's a lot.
Is he played for laughs?
He's played as a villain. He's played as the major villain. Because he backs up his awfulness by being good. He's excellent at cycling. So like, is he wrong? Is his twisted philosophy wrong if he gets results?
Right.
But he's definitely like, there are teams that are like, well, this is our rival team from years ago, or this is our rival team because like I have a personal relationship with this person, or we beat them, so now they want to beat us. But at the end of the day, like they'll go like hang out, and there's like a friendly rivalry between like two freshmen, Onoda and a guy from another team that like blossoms throughout the show, and like it's just a good weird anime about like cycling. And here's the thing that happens in this show that I love. One of the things I love most about anime, and I don't think any other medium quite does this, it's so good that people wanted to cycle and bike.
Oh.
It's one of those anime that changed Japan. Maybe not as big as Slam Dunk. You know, Slam Dunk altered sports in Japan. It wasn't the first manga about basketball, but that and the Dream Team, that happening at the same time, meant that people recreationally and in high school started playing basketball. So Yowamushi Pedal didn't necessarily do that, but it did do a lot where there's a special about Paralympic athletes that they made that's like really, really cool. The creator of the manga has like raised money for the Olympic cycling team for Japan because it just renewed interest in young people in biking as like a sport. And I love that. I love when anime could just be like, laid back camp. Mount Fuji suddenly had, and the camping grounds there suddenly had a huge spike in people wanting to camp because laid back camp is so good. It happens because Japan is a small enough country that anime can alter it for a few years. Saga increases tourism because an idol show about zombies was so good that people were like, I want to go to Saga. That looks awesome. The anime could just do that, which is rad. And Yowamushi Pedal has like done that. And yeah, I know that Corey, you're familiar with the series. Do you have any input?
Only spoilers.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all I can think of because
Yeah.
it's just like he has endurance for a reason because he bikes to like Akiba to buy his
Yes.
manga on the weekends.
Yeah.
From like Nowheresville where he lives.
Yeah. So that's how he got his endurance, was biking on a, they call it a grandma bike in the translation. I forget what the Japanese of it is,
Yeah.
but it's basically it's a bike with a basket in the front.
It's all steel and
yeah,
Heavy metal frame.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not meant for like biking up a hill fast.
Right.
So when he does get a bike that's like for racing, he's just like, oh, this is so much easier.
yeah,
They're like, yeah, that's the whole thing.
So it's not just it's not that he was born a natural or something.
No.
He just happened to train himself into being good at this.
Accidentally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's accidental. It's
That's
not
good. I like that.
Yeah, it's not like Initial D where his dad secretly trains him to be a great downhill specialist by making him deliver tofu.
Heel toe.
Yeah, by delivering tofu, and that was all part of his master plan, I guess. I don't know. This one is just like, it's my favorite part of sports anime because there are two types of sports anime. There is, I'm really good at this and I need to rally other people so we can do this, or, oh wait, I'm good at this. I guess I'll find out everything about it.
Now I gotta try hard.
Yeah, now I'm gonna try hard, and now I've like made friends, and now I have something that like, oh, like, yeah, okay, and it's got that like his mom doesn't know he does it, and like kind of shows up, and it's just like, wait, that's my son. What's happening right now? She's great too. She's a great little supportive mom. Yeah, it is a lovely series. And like I said, if you're looking for something to marathon, there are a lot of episodes of this show. So, yeah, and a movie. And at least one movie that like tells you what happened in a season. There's like one of those kind of movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on because we got some time. We got some time to get through these. We're not rushing right now. But let's talk about Megalobox.
Megalobox.
Yeah.
It's the hot new sport that's sweeping the nation. Boxing with robot arms so that you can potentially kill someone. This was a series made in 2018 for the 50th anniversary of Ashton no Joe. So it's a mild retelling of, I guess, Ashton no Joe, but it's 13 episodes. And I don't like boxing in real life. I don't like violence generally, but I think I like cinematic boxing a lot, like Megalobox or Creed or things like that. And this story, I found myself constantly impressed with like the pacing of it. Like it just kind of moves smoothly along, and character motivations all make sense. Our main character, Junk Dog or Joe, is like a underleague boxer in Megaloboxing. He's too poor to get into the big leagues because there's kind of a massive class difference. So it's got it's mostly just like a nobody getting into this big sport, right? And he fights other people that have like better equipment, better trainers, and he just like grits his teeth and gets through it. He gets like a coach to come out of retirement. There's a squad of little children that are annoying that follow him. It's mostly just really fun.
All right.
Yeah.
it looked really gritty. Like I was kind of like, oh, is this going to be like? Because I tried to watch Technolize one time, which is really gritty,
Right.
and I couldn't do it. And so when I saw that, oh, it's another fighting thing, and it's modern and it's got nice colors and nice design, but I was like, kind of like, is it going to be really like underground fighting kind of thing? But it's not.
No, it's more of like just a stylized representation of things.
Okay.
You know, you fight the guy that has an AI that can make him predict moves, and like other veteran fighters and such, and deal with things like the squad of children steal things in exchange for drugs because their lifestyle is so bad that they need drugs. Called Red Candy. There's an episode that deals a lot with PTSD from war.
Okay.
So that's kind of the only major trigger warning, I would guess, in the series that I can think of. I saw it when it came out. I haven't watched it since 2 years ago. And it's just... Oh, man. Okay. Also, the closing theme is a bop. Just a hell of a bop.
Hell yeah.
Right. The main theme, like I listen to the music of this all the time just because it's nice to have in the background. It's like, yeah, I can do the thing. Yeah.
All right.
But the ending theme is kind of just a acoustic guitar rap.
Okay.
This is on my Netflix list. Like because Ian was talking it up and you've been talking it up, and I'm like, okay, I will at some point sit down and watch it. Much like I sat down and watched a couple episodes of Dorohedoro. I'm going to sit down and watch an episode or two of this. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
This is not the same as Dorohedoro.
I get that. I understand.
I would recommend you watch this more than the other one.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
I don't think you're going to like that.
I haven't so far.
I mean, look, that show is awesome, but I also understand anyone that was like, no, yeah. I'm good. But I think like, oof, it managed to capture the manga, which I didn't think was possible because that manga,
I didn't either.
That manga is more like the Max than it's like anime, like than other manga. Like it's just so weird.
Yeah, it's got like I don't know, Grant Morrison feel. Like it's just, it's weird, and there shouldn't be a way to animate it.
Yeah, I never thought of it.
And yet they combined CG in a way that makes it kind of work. It's weird to look at, but it works.
Yes. It's weird to look at, and all the characters are weird, and some of them are very uncomfortable to view in any way, shape, or form. And it is bloody and strange, and like I didn't bat an eye when a face got ripped off.
Except that it's like this little girl.
Except that it's a little girl.
By the way,
her little scythes.
Yeah. Like when it was revealed that what happened there, I was like, yeah, that makes sense for this show. Well, that's messed up. But it wasn't like, what's happening? I'm never shocked by it. There's a couple things. That's not wrong. That's not true. There are a couple things that I was like, wait, what? That's a thing you could just do? But yeah. Let's move on. Let's get into Beej's last one here. But yeah, Megalobox. This is a show I haven't seen either. But it sounds very cool.
Yeah, it just like very firmly captures the nostalgia feeling while upgrading it for a new time. It does. They go a little cheap on some of the background textures.
Okay. Sometimes
you might notice that, but other than that, it's like beautiful.
Rad. All right, so let's talk about Centaur's Worries, which is also the English translation, if you're watching on the anime, is Centaur's Life.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so if you want to find it on Crunchyroll, it's Centaur's Life. But Centaur's Worries is the name of the manga, and the better translation for the Japanese. But yeah.
So Sentoru no Nayami. Is the Japanese for this, Centaur's Worries. And then, in English, it is A Centaur's Life. So if you're finding it hard to find it under C, it'll definitely be under A. So I watched this because I was reading the manga. And so let's start with a lot of things about me. I like monster girls. I think it's very interesting to see that. monster people in general, I think, are very interesting to see how mangaka will decide to render certain, like a centaur versus like a satyr versus like I don't know exactly the black-haired girl, I forget her name, damn it, but it's like, oh, they call them like demon people, but they're not demon people, they just have like bat wings and they have like the ears and stuff like that. But anyway, so this is slice of life. This is just a bunch of high school boys and girls going about their high school daily life. It's not a yonkoma, it's written out as like chapters of stories, and it's also then, their life at home and like all those kind of things. The anime is really fun, and I think does a better job of getting people interested in the show or in the story and the setting, because the mangaka, the first Christ, here I am going to make some excuses. The first chapter of the manga doesn't really have much to do with Himeno, who's the centaur there. It has to do more with the two girls who are flanking her, who I believe they're both women-loving women. I don't know if that means if they're both bi or if they're both lesbian or not, but the opening chapter has more to do with them talking about their relationship with each other while at school, and it gets a little dirty in the way that you would expect high school students talking about sex, like to each other, how that gets. And it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, good. I'm a pervert. I love prurient whatever. Sure, why not? But I'm like, I don't know if that's what's actually going on here or not. And you read more chapters, you're like, oh, that was just a chapter. That doesn't have any bearing on what the plot is about. That's just something that happened in this day at school when they had this conversation. And so the anime says, no, why the hell would we start with that? That's a very loaded way to start this show and gives you no impression of what the actual show is about, which is everybody in the world has 6 limbs. In fact, the world building, which is what I love about Centaur's Warriors, and it's why I bring it up as a thing that's interesting to watch. The mangaka has spent a lot of time in later chapters providing historical documents, things you can read, multi-paragraph sheafs of text that just describe this is why the world is the way that it is, and they're written as if they are high school textbooks. So they're meant to illustrate, like, look at what it's like. We evolved from a 6-legged lizard that came onto land, essentially, like an amphibian that came onto land and walked around, and it's like it might have been different living if maybe 2 of those limbs were missing, or if we had 2 more limbs, like that kind of idea. And it's meant to give you a sense of what this world has evolved into as a result. And then the amount of like the multiple bifurcations that happen to all of these from the initial ancestors, right? Because it's like, technically, yeah, there were no horses around when that 6-legged lizard came out of the water. When our ancestors came out of the water, there were no they didn't just but there were horses as well. It was like, no, everybody kind of came off of the same group of evolution, and they just kind of kept splitting and splitting and splitting. And this is the same thing. And there's also a lot of political things involved with this as well.
I was gonna say, I kind of got turned off on this because it at some point it seemed to be like it's illegal to like joke or be perceived that you're making fun of people for their appearance, but it definitely took the stance of it took the stance of like, this has gone too far. Like,
yeah,
it felt like it was telling me a message that I fundamentally don't agree in an anime about like lesbian animal women. And I was like, well, there's this snake person, and that seems interesting. Ooh, they have a whole lot to say about this. Yikes.
Yeah, the Antarcticans, the snake people, they are a snake race that lives below the ice in Antarctica. They have their very own society. And when you start to see how in the manga how all of those things are involved with each other, like they talk about there's a frogman who is French, funny that, named Jean Rousseau, and he's a great leader, but he also he is a member of a tribe that is trying to gain independence for themselves, and they're trying violent revolution against the governments. And it's like, this is a slice of life about a bunch of high school students who are all animals that go to school. Where does all this stuff come in? And yet it kind of does. And it's really, I think that's what makes it really interesting for me, because it's like, you'll watch this, you'll expect it to be a light, fluffy thing. Kind of yes, but also kind of no. If you're willing to spend a lot of time with the manga, especially, you'll see more of that. The messaging that it gives a lot of is like, we realized that, you know, we have to be, you have to respect everybody, and you can't be like making fun of somebody, because if you make fun of somebody for being like a centaur or whatever, you won't get reprimanded for it. You will be led away to a place to undergo re-education. And it's like, what is in this show? What? And yet, slice of life comedy. But it's because it takes place in this alternate universe. It's like, and everyone's fine with this. And I'm like, I guess I have to sit here and be fine with it too. It's weird. It's really weird, but it's, again, it's also a slice of life comedy, and it's kind of fun. Like,
Beej, it's just a fucking weird show. I don't know.
it is!
It's just a really weird show. Like I said, I hit the point where I was like, I can't anymore. Because it was
And
just
I completely understand that.
the underlying, like, censorship and stuff. Like, there was just a very much of like a world gone wrong thing. You can't even joke anymore. Like, it just felt like that. And I was like, I don't know. But if you're like willing to be like, I don't know, that's what this world is. I want to see more about what's going on. I want to see this play that they're going to put on. Sure.
Yeah. There is I will say that there is, I believe it's episode 5. I'm going to guess that it is episode 5. I don't know. There's mermaids in this world as well. All the mermaids all swim around with no tops on, boys and girls. So you get to see boobs. All of the they do an exchange program thing. I know this happens in the manga. I think this happened in the anime as well. They do an exchange program thing where all the kids from a couple classes in the high school that Himeno and her friends go to, they all go to the mermaid school to basically participate in classes there to see what it's like to be part of in a different kind of culture. And the school is half flooded, so it's like you have to go over a threshold and you have to you swim for a bit. So everyone's wearing swimsuits, but all the girls are all like in they're in a full swimsuit, because they're not going to just take their tops off, because obviously
it's like
different.
the school uniform swimsuit.
Yeah, they're in the school uniform swimsuit essentially. And what's interesting about that, of course, is that there's that whole thing about the boys being like, oh, but look at all the boobs. This is amazing. And of course, all the boys and all the girls who are mermaids are sitting there, they're wondering what the hell this is all about. All the boy mermaids are looking at all the girls who are covered up, and they're like, oh my God, they covered up their boobs. This is amazing. Like, that same kind of boys are horny wherever you go kind of thing. They're just horny for different things. And I'm like, that's an understandable sentiment that I have.
I get it.
So,
all right, so
I like it.
It's a weird show.
Yeah.
So that is the panel, and I don't know. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.